In the peaceful village of Mbonu, where the hills were green like emeralds and the rivers shimmered like gold under the sun, lived a young woman named Amira. She wasn't the richest, and she didn't wear fine clothes or golden jewels, but everyone in the village knew her name, not because of beauty, though her smile could calm storms, but because of the goodness in her heart. Amira was the kind of soul who forgave even before someone said sorry. She would give her last meal to a hungry child and carry water for an old stranger without expecting a thank you. She lived in a small clay house with her blind grandmother, Na Yimbe, who had raised her since she was a baby. Every morning, Amira would sit by the fire, weaving baskets with her strong, worn hands. Her fingers moved like they were dancing, creating beauty from nothing. In the evenings, after their simple meal of yam or beans, she would sing soft lullabies to her grandmother, her voice floating like wind through the trees. Even when they had no money, no help, and no family left, Amira never complained. She found joy in small things: sunlight through the window, a kind word from a neighbor, the sound of birds at dawn. Many young men admired her. They came from far villages with gifts, beads, goats, even silver bracelets. But Amira gently turned them away, not because she thought she was better, but because she believed love should be pure. She wanted a man who came with honor, not with lies. A man whose hands were not greedy, whose words were not sweet, only for gain. People often wondered how someone so humble could still be so full of hope. But Amira knew her worth. She knew that kindness was a strength, not a weakness. Though life was hard, Amira walked with her head high. Every market day, she carried her baskets with pride. Children followed her for stories. Elders blessed her with prayers. And still, she waited for a day when love would knock, not to take, but to give. She didn't know it yet, but fate had already set her story in motion. Something, or someone, was about to enter her life and change everything she thought she knew. Not all love brings peace. Some love tests the soul. And for Amira, the test would come in the form of a stranger with a past darker than the night sky. A man who would make her heart beat fast, and later, nearly stop it. But even then, she would stay loyal. This is where it all began, with a girl, her grandmother, and a heart too big for her small village. It was a stormy evening in Mbonu. The rain fell hard, turning the dusty roads into rivers of mud, and villagers ran for shelter. But as thunder cracked the sky, a loud gasp echoed from the marketplace. There, near the old village well, a stranger had collapsed, soaked in rain, clothes torn, and blood on his face. No one knew him. No one had seen him before. He lay there, barely breathing, his eyes half open, filled with pain and secrets. Some stepped back in fear. Others whispered, "Is he cursed? Is he a thief running from justice?" But Amira didn't listen to fear or gossip. Her heart, always guided by compassion, pushed her forward. While others hesitated, she wrapped her shawl around him and helped lift him. The man was heavy, and she struggled, but she didn't stop. She brought him to her small home, laid him on a mat near the fire, and with warm water and herbs, she began to care for him. Na Yimbe, though blind, sensed something in the man's silence. "He carries a burden heavier than his wounds," she whispered. For days, the stranger, Taju, drifted between sleep and fever. He didn't speak much. He didn't even smile. But Amira stayed beside him, wiping sweat from his forehead, whispering comfort, singing the same lullabies she once sang to her grandmother. Slowly, his wounds closed, and his eyes began to soften. He would watch Amira move around the house, her hands busy, her heart steady. He noticed how she gave without asking anything in return, and something inside him began to stir, something he hadn't felt in years: peace. The village didn't stay quiet. Whispers followed Amira wherever she went. Why take in a man you don't know? What if danger follows him? But Amira didn't defend herself with words. Her actions spoke louder, and Taju, touched by her courage, started helping her in the market. He carried the baskets she once carried alone. He stood beside her as they sold their goods, smiling shyly, slowly learning to laugh again. At first, they didn't talk much, but there was a gentle rhythm to their days. Shared glances, small jokes, silent understanding. The kind of closeness that doesn't need loud promises or gifts. Taju found joy in her laughter, strength in her presence. Amira too saw something in him, a sadness that needed healing, a heart that was still learning to trust. And just like that, without a single love letter or fancy proposal, something real bloomed between them. A bond formed not from words, but from moments. Two souls, one bruised, one bright, began to move in harmony. Amira had no idea what past Taju carried, and Taju had no idea how much he would come to depend on her. But for now, they were just Amira and Taju, walking through the storm, side by side, slowly falling in love. When Taju finally stood strong on his feet and could no longer hide what he felt, he went to Na Yimbe with trembling hands and a heart full of hope. Sitting beside the blind old woman, he bowed his head and asked, "May I have Amira's hand in marriage?" The old woman didn't need eyes to see his sincerity. She reached out, touched his face, and smiled. "You bring peace to her spirit. That is enough for me." With her blessing, the simple household was filled with joy. Their wedding wasn't grand, but it was magical. Under the wide branches of the ancient baobab tree, where the village often gathered for stories, Emira and Taju became husband and wife. Children threw petals, old men played drums, and women danced with happy feet. There was no gold, no feast, no silk gowns, but there was laughter, warmth, and love so real that even the wind seemed to sing with them. The people of Mbonu saw them as a miracle, a couple who had built something beautiful from nothing but kindness and trust. But while most smiled, not everyone's heart was kind. In the far corner of the gathering, Zulika watched with eyes full of fire. She was the chief's niece, beautiful, proud, and used to getting everything she wanted. From the moment Taju arrived in the village, his quiet strength had caught her attention. She had tried to approach him, flirted, even brought him gifts, but he had barely noticed. And now, he had chosen a mere basket weaver over her. Zulika's pride could not accept it. That night, her bitterness grew roots. She started whispering into the ears of villagers, planting poisonous seeds. "Taju is too handsome, too strong for someone like Amira," she said. "She must have used charms or herbs. That's the only way a man like him would marry her." Her words were sweet like honey but full of venom, and slowly, doubt crept into places it didn't belong. At first, Taju ignored the murmurs. He loved Amira, didn't he? But Zulika was clever. She didn't accuse Amira directly. Instead, she showed concern. "Are you truly happy?" she would ask. "Do you ever wonder why you stayed?" And Taju, though loyal, began to question the strange dreams he'd had when he was sick. He began to replay the whispers in his mind. Could it be true? Had something drawn him to Amira beyond his own will? The love that once stood tall began to bend ever so slightly. Amira, sensing a distance she couldn't explain, continued to smile. She cooked his meals, held his hand, and prayed in silence. But her heart grew heavier each day, unsure why the man who once looked at her like she was the sun now stared past her as if lost in a fog. Love, once their greatest strength, was being tested, not by life, but by lies. Zulika was not finished. Her whispers had turned into poison, slowly dripping into Taju's ears like steady rain on dry soil. She came to him at night when the village slept, dressed in fine wrappers, her perfume thick with temptation. "You were not made to sell baskets under the sun," she would murmur, pressing her hand to his chest. "You are a king in a cage. Amira can't give you anything. No name, no land, no legacy." She brought him palm wine mixed with herbs that made his mind foggy and dreams filled with gold. She painted pictures of a future where he wore silk, ruled men, and slept beside someone as refined as herself. "You deserve more," she told him again and again, until those words clung to his soul. Taju, once gentle and devoted, began to change. His eyes grew colder. He would leave at dawn, return after dark, and barely touch the food Amira cooked with love. He spoke in short sentences, sometimes not at all. But Amira, strong in spirit, said nothing. She watched in silence, carrying her sadness like a secret. Each night, she sat by Nayimbe's side, whispering prayers for the man she loved, the man she feared she was slowly losing. And though Taju slept beside her, his heart had drifted elsewhere. Then came the night when the storm inside him could no longer stay hidden. "Let's go to the river," he said, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "The moon is full. Let's collect water together." Amira, trusting still, followed. The river shimmered like silver, silent except for the rustling trees and the occasional croak of a frog. Amira knelt by the edge, lowering her calabash into the calm water. Behind her, Taju stood gripping a heavy wooden staff. His hands trembled. His mind screamed. But Zulika's voice echoed louder. "Do it. End it. Then you are free." He lifted the staff, but his heart paused. Just as he raised his arms, Amira turned. Her eyes met his. And in that single moment, her face filled with confusion, sorrow, and something even deeper, trust. The staff froze mid-air. He couldn't do it, but before he could drop it, a sharp voice pierced the night. "You are weak!" Zulika burst out from the bushes, fury blazing in her eyes. "Let me do it myself!" Her jealousy had boiled over. She didn't want Taju to love her anymore. She wanted Amira gone. Amira gasped, still kneeling. Zulika didn't hesitate. In one sudden motion, she rushed forward and shoved Amira into the river. The splash swallowed Amira's scream. And just like that, the quiet river turned into a witness of betrayal. The river was dark, silent, and cold, yet it didn't swallow Amira like Zulika had hoped. As her body hit the water, the shock of betrayal made her gasp, but instinct took over. She kicked, struggled, and reached out blindly. The current pulled her under, tossing her like a leaf in the wind. Her hands clawed at nothing, her lungs begged for air, but somehow, something inside her refused to die. She gripped a floating piece of driftwood with the last ounce of her strength, and then everything went black. Back at the village, Taju stood frozen, guilt eating him alive. Zulika squeezed his hand tightly. "It's done," she whispered with a smile. "Now you are free." He didn't speak. He didn't move. Together they returned to Mbonu and spun a lie, that Amira had slipped, fallen and drowned. There were no tears in Zulika's eyes, only victory. But when Na Yimba heard the news, her cries broke the sky. She tore at her clothes, called out to the ancestors, and wept until her voice cracked. Yet deep in her soul, she felt something strange, a whisper in her spirit. Emira is not gone. Far away, at the edge of the Umlazi coast, two fishermen saw something bobbing in the water. At first, they thought it was driftwood, but as they got closer, they saw fingers wrapped around it. A girl, soaked, bruised, barely breathing. They rushed to pull her out, wrapping her in dry cloth and carrying her to their canoe. She never opened her eyes, but her chest still moved, faint, like a dying flame. They took her to the secret village of Nyoka, hidden deep in the forest and known only to a few. There lived Mama Ekwa, the great oracle, healer of wounds the eyes could not see. When she laid eyes on Amira, she knew this was no ordinary girl. "This one carries pain and purpose," she said. "Let her rest, but let her rise." Days passed, then weeks. Amira drifted between dreams and memories, the warmth of Taju's touch, the coldness in his eyes, and the betrayal at the river. But Mama Ekwa never left her side. She rubbed special oils on her wounds, whispered ancient chants into her ears, and called on the spirits of the land to bring her back. Slowly, Amira's body healed, her heart not yet. One morning, Amira opened her eyes. She was alive, and though her body was weak, her spirit burned with something new, not just pain, but purpose. The girl who once sang lullabies to the moon was gone. In her place stood a woman ready to rise. Amira opened her eyes slowly, blinking against the warm golden light that filtered through the thatched roof. Her body ached. Her breath came in short bursts, and every limb felt like stone. Yet her heart beat steady, slow, but alive. Beside her sat a woman wrapped in bright cloth, eyes deep like the ocean, hands gentle as breeze. "Mama Ekwa, you are awake, my child," Mama Ekwa said softly, her voice like honey on warm bread. "The ancestors have kept you." Amira's lips trembled. Why? Why did he try to kill me? Her voice cracked with the weight of betrayal. Mama Ekwa did not flinch. She poured herbs into a bowl and stirred them with quiet care. "Because your loyalty was too strong for his weak heart. Because greed speaks louder than love when the soul is empty." She touched Amira's forehead. "But this is not your end. It is only your turning." From that day, Amira was no longer just a broken wife. She became a student of strength. The women of Nyoka, fierce and wise, welcomed her like a sister. They taught her to read the whispers of the wind, the secrets of the soil, the healing found in every leaf and root. She learned to crush bitterness into balm, to wrap pain into power. Her hands, once used for weaving baskets, now crafted salves that cured fevers and mended bones. She learned the art of silence, how to speak without words, how to listen with the soul. She carried her sorrow like a stone in her chest, but each day it grew lighter. Her tears watered her strength. At night, she would sit by the river, staring at her reflection. The girl who had once smiled at love was gone. In her place was someone stronger, wiser, someone who had seen death and refused to bow. One evening, As the moon bloomed full and the stars blinked like drums in the sky, Mama Ekwa approached Emira. In her hand, she held a wooden staff carved with symbols of the lion, strength, courage, royalty. "It is time," Mama Ekwa said. Amira stood taller than before, her back straight, her eyes no longer soft. "Time for what?" "To return," Mama Ekwa replied, pressing the staff into her hand. "Not for revenge, not for anger, but for truth, for the woman you were always meant to be." Amira took the staff and held it to her chest. The wind rustled the leaves around her, as if the forest itself was listening. She was no longer the betrayed wife. She was the flame the river could not drown, and now she was ready to burn bright. In the village of Mbonu, time had moved on, but peace had not settled. Taju, now married to Zulika, stood proudly beside the chief during gatherings. The old man, impressed by Taju's supposed bravery and charm, named him his heir. With that title came power, and with power came riches. Gold hung around their necks, wine flowed in their cups, and drums beat endlessly in celebration. But inside Taju, there was no music. Zulika, though beautiful, ruled with a heart full of thorns. She looked down on the villagers, called them dirty, and mocked their ways. Her laughter was sharp, not joyful. She sent poor children away from her gates and humiliated those who came with pleas. Even Na Yimbe, the blind grandmother who once welcomed Taju, was cast out of her small hut and forced to live in a broken shed near the bush. Taju watched, helpless but silent. He drowned his thoughts in drink, hoping to forget the girl by the river, the one who once nursed him from death, the one whose hands were rough but full of love. But every time the river's breeze touched his skin, he remembered her eyes, eyes that had looked at him with trust, eyes that had widened in shock before the water took her. The village, once filled with warmth, now lived in fear. The people whispered, but no one dared speak against the future chief and his cruel wife. They waited for a miracle, and the miracle came on the day of the Festival of Truth. The Festival of Truth was sacred, held only once every 5 years. It was the one day the ancestors were believed to walk among the living, a day when no lie could survive, and every secret would find light. The village square overflowed with color. Masks, beads, feathers, and the scent of burning herbs filled the air. At the heart of it all sat Taju and Zulika, dressed in robes of silk and arrogance. Dancers twirled, drummers roared, and the chief began the ceremony. Then, as the crowd parted to welcome the veiled dancers of Nayoka, silence fell. A woman stepped forward, tall, wrapped in red and gold, face hidden behind a curtain of beads. She moved like wind, silent but strong. Taju's heart skipped. Something about her felt familiar. Zulika laughed and leaned toward Taju. "Another foolish dancer," she mocked, but Taju could not laugh, because when the dancer lifted her veil, the earth beneath them seemed to pause. It was Amira, alive, and she had returned, not as a victim, but as a storm. The whole village was alive with excitement. Drums echoed through the air. Dancers painted in bright colors moved in circles, and everyone gathered in the square for the long-awaited Festival of Truth. It was the most powerful day in Mbonu, a day when the ancestors were believed to open the skies, and no secret could hide. But no one expected what was about to unfold. A mysterious priestess had arrived from the distant forest village of Nyoka. She wore flowing robes of gold and red, her face hidden behind beads and feathers. Her voice was calm, but her presence sent a chill through the air. Whispers spread fast. "Who is she? Why has she come?" Even the chief leaned forward, curious. When it was time to speak before the elders, the priestess stepped into the center. She removed her veil, and the whole world seemed to freeze. Gasps broke out from every corner. Taju staggered backward like he'd seen a ghost. His lips trembled. Zulika clutched her chest, her face draining of all color, because standing before them, alive and strong, was the one they thought was long gone. "I am Amira of Mbonu," she said, her voice sharp like thunder. "The woman you left for dead." The village exploded with shock. Women covered their mouths. Men dropped their calabashes. Children clung to their mothers. Na Yimbe, now older and weaker, fell to her knees and cried, "My child, my Amira." Taju couldn't speak. His mouth opened, but no words came out. He looked at Amira with a mix of guilt and fear. Zulika, however, tried to laugh. "Lies! She's a witch! This is witchcraft!" But Amira lifted her staff, the staff Mama Ekwa had given her, and pointed it straight at her. "You called me a witch when all I showed was love. You took my husband, my home, and tried to take my life, but I survived. The river couldn't claim me, and your poison couldn't break me." Then, in front of everyone, Amira told the whole story. She spoke of the whispers Zulika planted, the wine, the lies, the night at the river, the push, the fisherman who saved her, Mama Ekwa who healed her, and the truth that refused to die. The people listened, stunned and heartbroken. Some wept, some shouted, but all believed. Zulika's eyes darted around, desperate. She tried to run, but it was too late. The village guards blocked every path. The ancestors had spoken through truth, and now justice would follow. Taju dropped to his knees. "Forgive me," he whispered, broken. But Amira, standing tall with grace and fire in her eyes, said nothing. She didn't return for revenge. She returned to remind them who she was. Taju collapsed to the ground, tears soaking the dusty earth. "Forgive me," he cried, his voice cracking under the weight of guilt. "I was blind. I didn't see the truth until it was too late." But Amira stood still, calm and silent, her eyes fixed on him, not with hatred, but with the pain of someone who had been deeply betrayed by love. The chief rose slowly, his face dark with disappointment. "You were given honor," he said sternly, "but you chose deception." With one wave of his hand, Taju's necklace of leadership was stripped off. The people gasped. The man they once celebrated now stood stripped of power, pride, and position. Zulika tried once more to escape. She pushed through the crowd, her hair loose, her once beautiful dress torn. But the guards were ready. They caught her at the edge of the village, dragging her back before the elders. Her charm no longer worked. Her words were empty. Her beauty, once her weapon, had faded under the weight of her evil. The elders spoke. Zulika was sentenced to exile. She would leave Mbonu and never return. She screamed, pleaded, even cursed. But her voice was lost in the wind. The villagers turned their backs, the same way she had turned her heart from kindness. She vanished into the forest, alone and forgotten. Taju's punishment was different. Emira had gone to the oracle before the festival and whispered just one thing: let him live. Though he had betrayed her in the cruelest way, she still had a heart too soft to wish death. So instead, Taju was given a different sentence: to live among the people he once ruled, not as a king, but as a servant. He was made to sweep the temple grounds, carry water, and clean the very stones where he once walked proudly. Children pointed at him. Elders shook their heads in silence. His name was now a lesson mothers used when warning their sons. Every day, he passed the river where it all began, where he almost took a life that only ever showed him love. And every night, he sat by the old baobab tree, staring at the stars, wondering how he let everything slip away. But Amira, the woman who had every right to curse his name, never spoke ill of him. She moved with grace through the village, helping those in need, teaching young girls strength and self-worth. Her silence towards Taju was louder than any punishment. It reminded him daily that while he had chosen betrayal, she had chosen dignity, and that difference was the reason he fell, and she rose. The village of Mbonu slowly began to heal, piece by piece. The trees that had once stood witness to betrayal now swayed gently in the breeze, as if whispering secrets of the past. But it was Amira's quiet strength that brought the people together. They looked to her, not because she came from royalty or wealth, but because of the loyalty and grace she had shown in the face of unimaginable betrayal. The people of Mbonu saw in her the kind of leader they had always needed, someone who ruled with wisdom, compassion, and fairness. Amira never sought power, but when the elders gathered, it was clear that she was the one the people trusted. With Na Yimbe's passing, a piece of Amira's heart was lost, but the old woman died peacefully, her hand resting in her granddaughter's, a silent blessing for the woman who had become so much more than just a daughter or a wife. She was a queen, not by birth, but by the purity of her heart and the strength of her spirit. Meanwhile, Taju, once the man who had everything, now left with nothing, stayed in the village, his life marked by regret. He never remarried, he never left. His punishment was not exile or death, but a life spent in the shadows of the woman he had betrayed. Every year, on the day of the Festival of Truth, Taju would place a basket of white hibiscus flowers at Amira's door. It was his way of saying sorry, a way of honoring the woman who had once loved him, even when he didn't deserve it. Amira never took him back. She never let the hurt he caused in the past taint her heart again. But she also never cursed him. Her silence spoke volumes. not of hatred, but of understanding. She had learned, through everything, that loyalty wasn't about foolishness or blind devotion. It was about strength, the kind of strength that could survive even the worst of betrayals. The years passed, and Amira continued to lead the village with wisdom, making Mbonu flourish like never before. Taju, however, lived quietly, reflecting on the mistakes of his past. His love for her never faded, but he knew that he had lost her forever. Every year, the white hibiscus flowers marked the passage of time, a reminder of a love that could have been. And so, Amira's reign was a reign of kindness, not of power. She ruled not by force, but by the force of her heart. The people loved her, not for her position, but for the loyalty she had shown. Loyalty that had not only crowned her queen, but had taught the world that true strength lies in forgiveness and grace. As she stood beneath the baobab tree, looking out over the village, she would sometimes think of Taju, not with bitterness, but with a quiet understanding. Because some hearts, even when broken, refuse to turn bitter. And in that quiet strength, Amira remained not just a queen in title, but a queen in spirit, forever remembered in Mbonu's heart. Loyalty is not foolishness, she would say. It is a strength only the brave can carry, but betrayal has a price that no gold can ever pay. What a powerful journey of loyalty, betrayal, and redemption we've witnessed today. Amira's strength and resilience remind us that no matter how deep the wound, the heart that chooses to heal rather than hate can rise to greatness. Her story shows us that true power comes not from revenge, but from forgiveness and understanding. Taju's downfall and Amira's rise teach us the harsh truth that betrayal may take everything from you, but it will never take away your worth. If this story moved you, if Amira's unshakable loyalty and grace touched your heart, then don't let this moment pass. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this powerful lesson. Like this video if you believe in the strength of loyalty and the courage it takes to forgive. And if you want to continue watching more stories of love, betrayal, and redemption, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Join our growing family for more life-changing stories. Thank you so much for being a part of this journey. Your support means the world. Together, we can inspire and uplift each other. Stay strong, stay loyal, and remember, betrayal may break you, but loyalty will always rebuild you.